시대가 변해서 이제 4차 산업혁명 시대라고 그러고 온갖 새로운 기가 쏟아지는데 오늘 우리가 토론할 주제는 미네르바의 그 구조라든가 미네르바 대학은 어떻게 운영되는지 켄 로스 선생께서 아마 소개를 하실 겁니다. 자세히 이따 재미있는 얘기를 해 주실 겁니다. 변화하는 교육 과연 어떻게 될 것인지 미네르바에 그치지 않을 겁니다. 또 모르겠어요. 어떠면은 그리스의 아데나 신의 이름을 딴 그런 대학이 또 나올 수도 있겠죠. 그것도 지혜의 신이니까요. 미네르바처럼 아마 여러 가지로 나올 거고 우리는 미래를 바라보면서 총장님들과 함께 그런 걸 토론하고자 합니다.
우리 존경하는 총장님들 한 자리에서 이렇게 많이 만나 뵙게 돼서 너무나 기쁘고 반갑습니다. 정부에 대해서도 하실 말씀이 너무나 많고 정치권에도 의견을 드릴 말씀들이 아주 하루다 해도 모자랄 정도로 많을 것입니다. 오늘 아주 좋은 의견 주시고 모처럼 우리 대학병원에 대학신문사에서 이렇게 어렵게 자리를 마련해 주셨으니 오늘의 회의가 의미 있게 끝냈으면 좋겠다 그런 바람을 합니다. 그리고 오늘 강의를 멋있게 해주실 우리 미네르바 대학 총장님께 이렇게 멀리 와주신 데 대해서 대단히 감사합니다.
Good afternoon. 안녕하세요. That is the extent of my Korean. I apologize. I wish I knew more. I'd like to thank very much to President Lee for the invitation to have a chance to share a bit and interact with you a bit today. In terms of what I'd like to discuss today, a few things. I'd like to talk about what I believe everyone in this room is already aware, and that it is really time for a change in higher education. I'd like to talk about Minerva, this thing called Minerva, some of the benefits that we are seeing for students, for learners, probably the most important. I also wanted to talk about some of the benefits that Minerva and this model actually affords for institutions as well. Many of you, leadership of great Korean universities, right? I think it's important to look at things from that perspective. I want to talk about Minerva schools because there is a difference between Minerva project and Minerva schools. I can talk about that, right? I want to talk about the outcomes that we've actually seen at Minerva schools using the Minerva system, as we call it, because it is a system. It's not just a school, it's a system. Certainly, Minerva Schools was the first institution to use that system. It won't be the only one, though. And to talk about some of the outcomes that we've seen. And then I'd like to share a few words about how all of you can actually be the change, be positive change, right? Because again, you hold in your hands the reins or the leadership of many great Korean universities. Charles Darwin quote, right? It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It's the one most adaptable to change. The first time I actually heard the term Fourth Industrial Revolution was actually in Korea. I find here you love the term Fourth Industrial Revolution, right? I think it was some bankers, maybe at Deutsche Bank, that actually coined this term. That's what someone told me. But I know in Korea we talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The idea of the Fourth Industrial Revolution is inseparable from change, right? Change, right? And remember, it's not the strongest or the smartest that survives change. It's the one that's most adaptable, right? So keep that in mind as a theme going through this. Time for change, again, I think for you all fellow educators, some of this is not going to be that surprising, right? World is changing very quickly, right? Technology is driving that change and making it quicker than it probably ever has been in human history, right? And we've seen this across multiple regions, countries, markets, sectors. We know this. Again, this is nothing new to us. We've even seen it even within education as an industry, I guess, if we call it, or as a sector, as we call it. We've seen it there as well, right? I'm sure that you agree with me, right, in that we have a very similar viewpoint, right? And that is two words: education matters. Education is important, right? Probably cannot be overstated, because if you look at the nature of education, not just at the higher education level, but at many levels, right? What institutions do, what they don't do, sometimes it's actually, you would question whether people actually believe, or some people believe that education matters, but we believe it does. So the world is changing, education matters, but we all know this as well. We know that institutions, our own institutions, some institutions that you lead, the institutions maybe where you went to school, where you got your PhDs or your masters or even your undergraduate degrees, right, are facing many systemic challenges. We know that very well and very acutely, right? One big challenge is what sometimes people call the skills gap. Our young people, learners, students, need for success in our modern world, regardless of what they do. Doesn't matter whether they're going to be a scientist or whether they work for the government, right? Or whether they're an educator or whether they work in business. It doesn't matter. There's certain innate skills and abilities that they need that oftentimes our beloved traditional institutions are not very adept at giving them. They may have been very good at educating people in a 20th century, or maybe even a 19th century context. Certainly where I come from in the United States, many students don't even finish their university studies. A number of reasons for that. Some of them find it actually ineffective. Some of it find it question its usefulness. Some people can't afford it. This is a particular problem we have in the United States because education is so darn expensive, right? Many students in the United States, at least, graduate with a lot of debt. Of course, in Korea, it's a bit different. Tuitions in Korea are not as high. However, somebody is paying for it, right? It may not be the student, it may be you, it may be the institution itself, it may be the government. There's a cost to delivering higher education that in many quarters has become too high, too untenable, too unsustainable. Right? We very much believe that we really need to rethink what we teach and how we teach and where we teach. We need to rethink what students learn, how they learn, and where they learn in a modern context. That's a little bit of background I think we all know. But because of the situation nowadays, this led a number of us to create something. Let's call it the Minerva system, right? Earlier we talked about, and many people put this in the context of Minerva schools, right? Minerva is a university program. We have a very small graduate program right now as well, but considered a university program, right? But it's actually more than that. It's a system. And we'll talk about why it's not just a school and it's a system, right, as part of this. But it is a system, right, that combines very modern, relevant curriculum, content, the what, with all of the pedagogical practices that many of us know from experience are most effective. Think of everything that science has shown and research has shown to work in the classroom, which means it doesn't do this, what I'm doing right now. It doesn't lecture, because lectures don't work, as we all know. If I tested you all after this, you would only remember a bit of what I say, because that's the nature of lectures, right? Curriculum, pedagogy, right? And a classroom experience, technology-aided classroom experience that provides for a much more intimate and a much more engaging classroom. This is what we commonly refer to as the system. This is the core of the system that Minerva Schools has used to great success, as I'll talk about, right? But it's also key and important is because this system was designed, was built, not just for Minerva Schools.
Minerva exists to work with other institutions around the world, not just in the United States, around the world, such that they can maybe take some of what we've actually accomplished with what they've accomplished to create something better, such that everybody benefits, not just the few hundred students that get into Minerva, because it's tough to get into Minerva schools, as we heard. And we, as an institution, we as a group of people who are very mission-driven, we are not going to improve education globally for everyone through one school. As successful as Minerva Schools becomes, it could be the most respected, the most successful institution in the world eventually. Our graduates could run the world, government, business, research, philanthropy, everywhere. If we did that in 20 or 30 years, and if that's all that we did, we would have failed miserably. Again, because we exist not just for our own institution, we exist for education everywhere. I think we all know that certainly in our modern society, and probably for some time now, right, there are certain transferable abilities, certain skills, right? We hear this talked about all the time. We hear it talked about in the context of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, but we know this. Regardless of what you do, whether you're an educator, whether you're in business, right? Whether you're a government leader, the ability to think critically, right? To analyze problems, right? Effectively, right? To come up with creative and ideally innovative solutions to those problems, and then to work with others and to communicate those solutions, right? And work effectively with others to implement them. This is what we all do in daily life, right? Above all else, we would say this is what you should actually learn. You know, maybe you should start learning it in high school or in secondary school, but you should definitely be able to master this in university, right? Yet, as we all very well know, many of our traditional universities are not very effective at teaching these, at students learning these. What most of our traditional universities do is what we've done for a long time, is we disseminate content. We take biology, and we take physics, right? And we take history, and we push it to students, right? Well, particularly in a modern era where a lot of the stuff you can actually learn by getting on the internet, some things, right? Or you could even read a book, and books have been around for a while. What becomes even more important in our modern society, but what's always been important, is again, the ability to analyze information. To be able to separate what is true from fact, what is right from wrong, right? These innate abilities. Right? Now, certainly in the United States, where I'm from, all of our great universities say that they teach people to think critically and they think and creatively problem solve and all that. But you have to ask them how they actually do it. Because Minerva not only says this, but we actually do it in a very, I think, meaningful and thoughtful way. So remember my colleague, Stephen Kosslyn, right? So one of the world's foremost experts on, well, cognitive science, right? And how the brain works, right? Certainly knows much better than I do, right? That in order to be able to learn fully these skills and abilities, right, you have to break them down into their core component parts. Because critical thinking is not one thing. Whenever somebody says to me, oh, we're teaching critical thinking, it drives me crazy. How are you doing that, right? Critical thinking is not one thing. It's comprised of many different subcomponents, sub-processes that we can train our brain to actually learn. But here's the thing. For our brains to really effectively learn these, right, and to be able to use them in many different areas, we need to practice them in multiple contexts, in multiple disciplines. Something called FAR transfer. So maybe many of you are familiar with the term of FAR transfer. To learn something in one context, to learn a skill in natural science, context of the natural sciences, in chemistry or biology, right? Or biochemistry. And then be able to practice that in the social sciences, in law, right? In philosophy. Be able to practice it in arts and humanities, in computational sciences, across the board. And if the brain, and the brain is notoriously bad with doing this naturally, right? The brain is terrible at far transferring without practice. We stink at it. It's just biology. It's our brain. But by practicing such deliberately across multiple disciplines and doing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, we can get a little better at it. We can get a lot better at it, actually. And that's the goal, right? Because this is what we want. So we want students, even in using the Minerva system, or certainly in Minerva schools, if our students forget all of the content that they learn, if they forget all of the, if they're a biology major, if you forget all of the biology that you've learned, well, hopefully you won't forget everything. But if you do, fine. But if you master these transferable skills and can apply them not only in the biological sciences, but across other disciplines as well, success, in our opinion. Another big aspect, a major aspect of benefits for students about how students learn using the Minerva system has to do with active learning versus passive learning, right? So listen, again, we all know this here. There has been a lot of research and there is a lot of data that show that being actively engaged in what you're learning is much more effective for retention. That's what I'm saying. This is tough because it's passive, right? It's passive. Passive learning, lectures like this, are not nearly as effective. Remember what Eric Mazur, physics professor at Harvard. Remember what he did with peer instruction and with his students when he went from, he took the 2 classes that used to all be lecture, then he kept one lecture and he flipped one classroom. And he started using peer instruction heavily in that one classroom. What happened to retention rates just of content? Forget about if it was useful content. Remember the retention rates. Students assessed 2 years later. The lecture-based students remembered 10%. The flipped learning, like the active learning-based students, remembered 70%. He didn't believe it. So he tried it again the following year, and the following year, and the following year after that. Similar results, right? Take all of these tools that maybe many of you have also used and developed, right? The active learning tools that the Minerva system uses, we didn't invent really any of it. Other people have created it, built it, have proven through use and application and research, they've proven that it works. But we use it. We basically take everything that works and throw away everything that doesn't work, right?
The Active Learning Forum is the unexpected learning forum, the place where you're constantly engaging with what you're learning.
As a Minerva student, I get to take classes from anywhere in the city.
All of Minerva's classes are taught in the seminar format with a maximum of 18 students.
Everyone agrees that higher education could be much better than it is today. Minerva's acting on that by putting together state-of-the-art technology and superb pedagogy. We have at our fingertips tools that are designed to engage the students 100% of the time.
When you characterize a problem, it's important that it helps guide you to the solution.
Perfect, that's excellent.
In a normal classroom, there's people behind you, there's people to the side of you, but it's nice to be able to see everybody and their reactions to what's being talked about in class.
I feel like I'm in a room with all of my students. I simply forget I'm on the computer.
You will be going into breakout groups?
It's the kind of learning where we're an active participant instead of a passive recipient, and it's so much more fun than a traditional class.
We are the only school in the world that uses the science of learning to design not just what we teach, but how we teach it.
Minerva students live and study together. Having that human interaction really strengthens the online class experience.
We can do things with education that has simply never been possible before. And that's what we're trying to do at Minerva.
Think of it this way. That's a little bit about what a Minerva classroom experience is about, right? Active, not passive. It's about using all of the tools that have been shown to work, right, in pedagogical science and putting them together, right, in each class session for maximum effectiveness, to optimize individual student learning outcomes, right? Okay. We talked a bit about some benefits of this system for students. I wanted to say a few words about benefits for institutions, because there are some interesting benefits for institutions as well. So, even though a lot of people talk about technology in education, right? Technology in the classroom, technology in education in general, and that's fine, right? Sometimes people, I think, overstate a lot of what, technology should be doing, or maybe think technology should be doing certain things that it actually shouldn't be doing, or vice versa. But it is true that, and we found, certainly in right now in 2019, right, that technology, if used thoughtfully and properly, does have the ability to create a much more controlled and interactive and dynamic setting for learning. And we know this very, very well because that's exactly what we do. The classroom settings that you saw in the video right now, our classroom at Minerva, we have a name for it. It's called Minerva Forum, or just Forum, right? F-O-R-U-M, Forum, right? Does just this. It offers the ability for educators to create a much more controlled and structured environment. It also offers the ability to collect and then offer to students an unprecedented level of individual feedback, right? Which is very, very interesting, right? It also offers instructors, institutions, tools for development of courses to make with this system, you could take any course from anywhere, any institution, or a new course, for that matter, right? And make it fully active learning, right? To make it just as engaging and just as dynamic and just as intensive as any course, for example, that we already teach at Minerva schools. It would also offer an institution the ability to offer additional programs, right? Again, using that, such as scaffolded curriculum and fully active learning for certainly much lower cost. A lot of this also has to do with cost benefits as well, right? We all know and love, traditional university campus setting, right? Because many of us have worked or work there. We went to school there, right? But think about the physical footprint of a traditional university campus, be it one in the city or one in the countryside, right? Hasn't really changed that much over time. But what we found, certainly using the Minerva system, and we certainly found this at Minerva schools, is that it really allows you to rethink what a campus should look like, how space is used, how space is allocated, right? And it can allow an institution to vastly increase the utilization of the space that you would actually have. You could end up educating more students with a smaller geographic footprint, because you don't necessarily need all this classroom space that sits unused most of the time, as we know, right? So, interesting added benefit. I'm trying to look at this and talk about the system from several different angles, right? Okay, so we talked about the system, right? Because I wanted everyone here to understand that it's not just an institution, Minerva, it is a system. It is a system that can be copied or adopted, a part of it or wholesale, right? So the Minerva schools, right, which is small, has several hundred students, 600 students now, right? It's interesting because a little more than a year ago, we announced this piece of information, very interesting piece of information. Remember I said before that Minerva not only believes that it's of utmost importance for students to learn to think critically and to be able to creatively problem solve and to be able to communicate effectively. But from the very beginning, we wanted to measure that to show we wanted to prove our hypothesis. Our hypothesis was that the Minerva system would be able to do that, right? To be able to have students learn and be able to apply those skills better than any other university system, right? That was our hypothesis, and we wanted a way to prove it. One of the ways we thought about doing so is to use a third-party assessment metric called the CLA+, some independent entity, I forget the name of the entity. It was designed to assess people's ability to think critically and to think creatively and to communicate effectively. It was designed to assess how well universities, particularly American universities, like to talk about this, it was designed to assess how well they do their jobs. And therefore, of course, either now or in the past, hundreds of universities, mainly in the United States, but some outside the United States, have had their students sit this assessment, right? Some universities are a little bit, don't like this assessment much, as you'd imagine, because with some schools it shows no improvement in terms of those learning outcomes over 4 years. It's actually quite damning in some respects for some institutions, right? So Minerva did the same thing. Minerva basically said, okay, we have our students take this, before they actually start at Minerva. We have them do this assessment after the first year. We also will have them do it at the end of their 4 years. And it was very interesting, the data that now we've collected, we've seen these several years. It's actually, you could say, wow, it's astounding. It's amazing. But maybe it just makes sense. Far surpass any other school students in aggregate after 4 years. We believe we can do more in 1 year than all these hundreds of other institutions, and I'm talking about great, wonderful institutions in the United States can do after 4 years. I know that's a very loaded statement, right? But we believe this is what the data show. Minerva students have achieved unprecedentedly high levels of assessment scores on this assessment. They've never seen anything quite so high. Certainly not so high even after students just after 1 year, right? Also, another interesting proof point I think we've been seeing is we were very curious to be able to prove our hypothesis, which was Minerva students who learn in the Minerva system, regardless of what they study, will be much more effective when they go to work or when they do research or in the real world, right? And so from the very beginning with our students, after just their first year at Minerva, when about 90% of them do internships or research in the summertime for their summer vacation, we began to track feedback from employers, where again, Minerva students perform far above not only their peers, not only other students who are 1 or 2 years into university, but students who have done 3 or 4 years at other traditional universities. Top universities in the United States. Very interesting, and elsewhere, right? This is where interesting, right? How can the rest of us, how can everyone else sort of be the change we would like to see? Because I believe many of us would like to see change in higher education. Again, has been designed to be flexible, adaptable, and even adoptable. That's one thing to keep in mind. You probably also have read about, because this is not new, you probably also read about, after many years of running our own institution using the Minerva system, we decided last year in 2018 that we were going to choose one university from around the world. It ended up we chose a university from Hong Kong, HKUST, very close relatively to here. We didn't choose something in the US, we didn't choose something in Europe. HKUST, President Wei, who was provost at the time, Roger Cheng, vice provost, convinced us that they were going to be progressive and innovative and implement the Minerva system. Many people tried to convince us of that too, but we chose them last year to work with them. One final thing, last slide. So this news I'm going to share with you all now is very new. It's 3 days old. Minerva announced something we've been working on for years. Right? So if you know a bit about how we run things in Minerva Schools, you know we have these, again, fully active learning, seminars, discussion-based, everything on Minerva Forum. You also know that all of our class sizes are small, right? 20 students or less at Minerva Schools. What you also know, particularly if you run a university, is that it is perhaps impossible maybe, for many other universities to have 100% of your classes all small size. We could do it, but that's just the way we do it, right? But it may be difficult, if not impossible, for others to do it. And we know that. We knew that from the beginning, right? So what Minerva has been creating, based on our own experience, is a classroom. You call it an updated version of Minerva Forum, right? That allows for fully active learning, even for a classroom of several hundred students. Whereas, if using one professor, you would need a number of teaching assistants, you will need a number of TAs, right? But the ability to it allows an institution of any size, even if your average class size is 200 students, even if you have to teach people in big 300-400 person lectures, you can completely get rid of lectures. And you can have fully active learning, active, engaged, constant activity, flipped classroom several times, right? For every single student. We believe, this is big. As important, I think, as the creation of Minerva and Minerva Schools was in the beginning a number of years ago, maybe this is bigger. Okay, I've spoken enough. Thank you. I'd be happy to have any questions or dialogue if we still have time. Thank you.
먼저 저는 좀 이런 생각을 해봤어요. 요새 여러분들이 보시면 이제 전통 경제라고 하는 거, 뭐 그래서 거기서 중요한 거는 전통 대학은 캠퍼스도 크고, 또 돈도 많이 들였고, 그다음에 교수도 많고, 뭐 이런 그런 거죠. 그러다가 인터넷 레볼루션이 왔지 않습니까? 그게 와가지고 이제 제가 보기에 인터넷으로 강의를 하면서 이제 사이버 대학이 많이 생겼습니다. 사이버 대학인데 미국이나 이런 뭐 전 세계는 한 대학에서 사이버 디그리도 있고 오프라인 디그리도 있고 뭐 한 대학에서 다 그렇죠. 이제 그다음에 제가 왜 그다음에 요즘 많이 나오는 게 쉐어링 이코노미라는 겁니다. 쉐어링 이코노미라는 것이 이제 무섭게 터지고 있는데 저는 쉐어링 이코노미 여러분들이 뭐 우버, 에어비앤비 뭐 이런 거 들어보지 않습니까? 이게 따지고 보면은 어떤 인터넷 경제를 뛰어넘어서 공유를 하다 보니까 이 가치가 높아지는데 미네르바 대학도 따지고 보면 사이버 대학입니다. 온라인 강의를 하고 한데 거기에다가 자기네 그 혁신적인 교육 시스템을 공유하면서 내가 보기에는 잘하면은 그렇게 커질 수도 있겠다 하는 생각은 했습니다. 미네르바 대학 같은 데는 캠퍼스가 없습니다. 오히려 미네르바 대학 같이 이렇게 아예 그냥 없으니까, 캠퍼스가 없으니까 그냥 전 세계를 뛰어다니는 그런 면에서 어떻게 보면 더 효과적일 수 있다. 그래서 저는 이런 미네르바 대학 같은 데가 이렇게 오히려 없는 게 더 장점일 수도 상당히 많다. 그러니까 앞으로 이 공유 경제가 오히려 더 유리할 수도 있다, 그런 생각을 하고 있고요. 이제 공유 경제 이후에서 요즘은 AI 혁명이라 그러잖아요. 이제 앞으로 이런 대학도 이런 비슷한 대학이 이미 불란서에 나와 있어요. 여기는 대학에 교수가 없습니다. 없고 프로젝트 몇 개를 하면은 10단계면 10단계, 뭐 15개, 15단계면 그 졸업할 수가 있어요. 그랑제 꼴이 있고 일반 대학이 있는데 그랑제 꼴이 월급 훨씬 더 많이 받고 다 대부분 그런데 그 수준의 월급도 받고 그렇습니다. 그러니까 미래에는 교수도 필요 없는 시대가 이미 와 있다. 그럼 앞으로 어떻게 될 것이냐? 저는 한번 예측을 해봤습니다. 과연 전통대학은 없어질 것이냐? 과연 그러면은 어떤 대학이 살아남을 것이냐 이제 그런데 전통대학은 살아남는다 하는 게 결론입니다. 전통대학은 특히 좋은 전통대학은 더 잘 살아남는다. 특히 브랜드가 있는 전통대학은 살아남는다 이렇게 봅니다. 브랜드가 그 점점 뭐 하버드, MIT, 뭐 스탠포드 이런 데는 점점 들어가기 어려워지는 겁니다. 이 브랜드 그것 때문에. 인터넷에서 물론 자료는 다 있어요. 아까 말한 대로 무료로 공부할 수도 있고 인터넷에 뭐 컨텐츠도 많고 하버드, MIT 할수 공개 강좌가 많이 오픈되어 있습니다. 그럼에도 불구하고 암만 인터넷에 좋은 것이 있고 뭐 해도 살아남는다 그렇게 보는 거죠. 그래서 이제 저는 아까 말한 대로 미네르바 같은 에어비앤비 같은 대학도 있을 거고 확실하게 살아남는 건 아주 브랜드가 있는 학교는 확실히 살아남는다. 계속적으로 우리는 그런 미네르바가 던진 그런 걸 포함해서 계속적으로 좀 이 개혁되는 것을 우리가 좀 지켜보면서 그걸 적용해야 되지 않나 생각을 합니다. 샌프란시스코에 가서 듣고 또 자료를 보니까 첫 번째는 굉장히 리더십을 강조하더라고요. 지도자를 기르겠다. 두 번째는 사람들은 계속 혁신을 많이 강조해요. 혁신, 이노베이션, 이 대학교 목표. 이 생각하는데 이분들이 1학년 때 주로 가르치는 게 이런 생각하는 능력을 기르겠다는 거고 이분들이 글로벌하다. 굉장히 글로벌하게 학생도 글로벌하게 뽑고 캠퍼스도 글로벌, 좀 마인드가 전 세계가 내 캠퍼스다 하는 느낌을 가질 정도로 수업은 100% 사이버인데 근데 그 굉장히 효율적인 사이버 교육을 하는 거예요. 그래서 일방적으로 듣기만 하는 사이버 교육이 아니라 여기는 보면 교수의 역할은 약합니다. 학생들이 그냥 열심히 토론하게 하고 교수는 그냥 이렇게 퍼실리테이터라고 볼 수도 있고 멘토라고 볼 수도 있고 진행자죠. 그래서 화면에 이제 보면 저 학생은 열심히 한다 아니다 이걸 판가름하는 겁니다. 그래서 이제 이분들이 얘기하는 거는 액티브 러닝이 강의 여기는 이제 강의만 일방적으로 듣는 걸 패시브 러닝이라 그러죠. 그보다 훨씬 낫다 이제. 그래서 티칭보다는 러닝 쪽으로 적극적으로 한다. 하여튼 플립트 러닝을 많이 합니다. 그러니까 미리 학생들이 가르치는 게 아니라 학생들이 되게 수업을 미리 예습해 가지고 와가지고 열심히 토론하는. 세 번째는 이분들이 컨버전스를 많이 강조합니다. 이 세상의 모든 문제가 융합돼 있지 이게 별도로 된 게 아니다. 이제 그런 걸 계속 융합을 얘기하면서 그래서 이제 제일 이분들이 이제 수출하려고 하는 게 그 생각하는 법. 이거를 이제 수출하려고 해서 그걸 또 공유 경제로 이제 할 수 있는 거겠죠. 근데 미네르바 대학 같은 데서는 생각하는 게 이제 생각하는 능력이라는 거죠. 앞으로 교육이라는 것이 4차 산업시대 때는 좀 즐거운 교육이 되고 스스로 하는 교육이 되고 그래서 고기를 줄 생각을 하지 말자. 고기 잡는 법을 좀 가르치자. 이게 따지면 문제 해결 능력 내지는 생각하는 능력이겠죠. 현장 기반 수업이 중요하고 그다음에 앞으로 프로젝트 수업을 강화해야 된다. 그런 그 프로젝트 수업이 뭐냐면 왜 프로젝트 수업이 중요하냐? 크리에이티비티가 중요하고 크리티컬 싱킹이 중요하고 커뮤니케이션이 중요하고 콜래보레이션이 중요하다. 4C. 근데 그거는 프로젝트 수업을 하면 4C가 늘어난다 그러는데 이 대학교도 보니까 아까 그 4C에 대해서 강조를 똑같이 하고 있더라고요. 그래서 앞으로 가장 중요한 게 뭘 거냐 능력 중에 앞으로 우리 미래에 우리 무슨 능력이 가장 필요한가를 갖다가 이제 CEO들이나 뭐 이렇게 쫙 돌렸더니 1등은 항상 중요한 게 복잡한 문제 해결 능력입니다. 그래서 저는 근데 그것이 앞으로 뭐 예우고 뭐 이런 그런 지식 자체가 중요한 게 아니라 어떤 문제가 생겼을 때 그 복잡한 문제를 해결하는 능력이 이구동성으로 제일 중요하다 이런 얘기죠. 뭐 결론을 좀 제가 한마디 얘기한다면은 그런 것 같아요. 미네르바 대학이나 뭐 우리가 앞으로 해야 될 게 대학이 고기를 주는 것보다 고기 잡는 법을 주고 하여튼 문제를 해결하는 능력, 그러니까 생각하는 능력. 그래서 그런 거를 우리가 학생들한테 많이 주고 학생들이 그 생각하는 능력을 가지고 실제 문제를 많이 풀어가지고 실제 사회에 나갔을 때 좀 기여를 하면 좋지 않겠느냐. 이제 그런 얘기입니다. 예, 이상입니다. 예, 감사합니다.
기존의 대학들은 전통적인 관행이 굉장히 강합니다. 각 학과별로 융합보다는 독립되어 있는 전문성을 강조하는 풍토가 있다든지 이런 여러 가지 제약점들이 많고 이런 것을 변화시키는 데는 상당히 좀 힘이 듭니다. 이 기존의 대학들이 이런 새로운 시스템으로 전환시키기 위해서 어떤 점에 유의를 해야 되고 어떻게 하는 것이 가장 현명하다고 생각하십니까?
이 미네르바 대학의 학생들을 선발하는 과정에 대해서 사실은 충분하게 말씀을 안 해주신 것 같아요. 학생 선발에 있어서의 가장 중요한 부분과 또 개별 대학을 넘어서는 이 자원이나 자본에 대한 부분, 뭐 이런 부분에 대해서 좀 말씀을 해주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
저는 한동대 장순웅 총장님한테 하나 여쭙겠습니다. 한동대의 경우 이번에 벤치마킹을 하셔서 학교에 적용하는 과정에서 겪었던 법규와 그리고 제반 시행착오가 좀 많이 궁금한데요. 그 점에 관해서 저희가 실무적으로 좀 참고할 만한 내용이 있으면 좀 말씀을 주시면 고맙겠습니다.
2011년에 그 학교가 설립이 되지 않았습니까? 2011년. 그러면 그 학교가 설립되기 전까지 어느 정도 준비 기간을 거치셨는지, 그다음에 그때 설립 준비할 때 어떤 분들이 모여서 가지고 이 브레인스토밍을 하고 이걸 그 임플리멘트 하려고 하셨는지, 이 100% 온라인 그 시스템을 개발을 하셨는데 사실 온라인 시스템을 독자적으로 개발하려면 상당히 돈이 많이 들고 투자가 많이 필요했을 것으로 생각이 듭니다. 근데 지금 그 테크놀로지가 워낙 또 이렇게 발전이 빠르고 하니까 이걸 계속해서 업그레이드해 나가야 되는데 아마 지금부터도 상당히 많은 돈이 들 것으로 이렇게 예상이 되는데, 아까 보니까 투이션 레벨이 굉장히 낮더라고요. 한 10,000불 정도 이렇게. 예, 그러면은 이게 과연 그 투자가 계속해서 이루어질 수 있는 것인지, 아니면 그 어떻게 그런 재정적인 그 소스는 어디서 나오는지 이런 것에 대해서 좀 여쭙고 싶습니다.
I have to remember the three questions. I try to make some notes. All very, very good questions. I'll say, first of all, that Minerva is complex. The system we've built, the school that uses the system and then does other stuff, right? It's a bit complex, so it does warrant some explanation. I think to your initial question is, I don't know if I have an answer as to whether you start gradually or you start do a big splash. I think that a lot of us want to see some sort of change, right? And maybe sometimes it is better to start gradually, to make it your own, to basically take maybe that basis of innovation, for example, that we have, but then take it in your own sort of direction. Right? So I think for existing institutions, gradual is most appropriate. Sometimes, if you are starting a new institution, we're approached by many institutions all the time, every day, but sometimes we get approached by people that are going to start a new university. That's a bit easier, and you could do a lot all at once. The second question was about student selection. And again, first I want to say Minerva Schools is a bit weird. It's a bit strange. In other words, not only does Minerva Schools use the Minerva system as I described it, but the Minerva system as we define it doesn't include global immersion, really. It doesn't include our 7 cities and 7 countries. It doesn't really include the way we admit and select students, right? Because we understand, remember what I just said, we want to make the Minerva system easy to copy for other institutions. And things like having students live around the world is very difficult to copy, right? So when we select students at Minerva Schools, we're looking for a very particular type of student. And we're only looking for that type of student. So, for example, if you look at Harvard, where I went to school, or MIT, where some other people went to school, President Chang went to MIT, undergraduate, of course. These schools are also looking for intelligent students, but they also want to find rich students, right? They want to find the sons and daughters of alumni. They want to find sports stars for their sports teams. We don't deal with all of that type of stuff. We are just looking for the most innately, naturally intelligent students, and then also who are the most hardworking. The technology that we built is not, it's not, you'd be surprised how little it took to sort of build it. And I say that, and my colleagues, my technical colleagues would say, oh, that's, it took us a long time, right? And we still continue to refine it. Listen, 3 days ago, we announced a major change to the technology. So when I say, that last slide I had there, and I said, we announced 3 days ago, Minerva Forum now can accommodate up to 400 students in fully active learning style. That reflects several years of continued development, both on the academics, because you actually have to do a lot with the academics and the pedagogy, but it also is, a big part of it is the technology. And it's not terribly, it's not terribly expensive, right? So we believe, and that we've shown, we believe we've proven that you can do a lot.
세 가지 좀 질문을 드리겠는데요. 우선 켄 로스 이사님의 말씀 속에서 그 시스템이라는 용어가 매우 인상적으로 다가왔습니다. 그 시스템이란 말을 강조하게 된 여러 가지 그 어떤 배경들이 있을 것 같아서 그걸 좀 더 자세히 설명을 해주시면, 그다음 두 번째는 찰스 다윈의 그 이야기를 해주셔서 또 인상적이었는데요. 미네르바의 경우에 앞으로 어떻게 전망하시는지, 미네르바를 뛰어넘는 새로운 미네르바가 나올 가능성 또는 그런 거에 대해서는 어떤 전망들을 갖고 계시는지, 그게 두 번째 질문이고요. 저는 이제 세 번째, 이건 아주 좀 단도직입적인 질문인데, 복제 말씀을 많이 하셨단 말이에요. 미네르바가 추구하는 궁극적인 꿈은 무엇인가, 그걸 조금 더 설명을 해 주실 때 많은 그 참고가 될 것 같습니다. 이상입니다.
아주 그 장점이 많은 시스템에 대한 것에 대해서도 이해가 되고, 또 거기서부터 오는 benefit, 여러 가지 베네피트가 있다고 그랬습니다. 그것도 다 이해가 됩니다. 근데 저는 그러면 이 체제가 가지고 있는 취약성이나 보완해야 할 것들은 없느냐 하는 생각을 해보게 됩니다. 나사 같은 데에 근무하는 사람들은 그런 다면적인 지식을 가지고 문제 하나를 해결하려는 그런 능력보다는 자기 분야에 대한 전문 지식을 가지고 있다고요. 그래서 그 전문 지식을 자기가 주장함으로써 그룹의 솔루션이 좋아지는 거지, 개인 한 사람 한 사람의 문제 해결자적 능력이 좋아진다고 그래서 과연 앞날에 이 복잡한 세상에 나사에서 우주로 나아갈 수 있는 테크닉이나 스킬을 개발하는 것 같은 것을 할 수 있을 것이며, 어떻게 보면 인디비주얼 캐퍼빌리티를 강조하는 듯해서 그런 것들을 어떻게 보완할 수 있을 것인가 하는 질문을 저는 해보고 싶었습니다.
이 미네르바 통해서 우리가 배워야 될 게 뭐냐면은, 결코 건물이라든지 이런 하드웨어가 그렇게 중요한 건 아니다. 진짜 중요한 건 소프트웨어다, 이런 얘기를. 그래서 이제 앞으로 우리나라 대학이 혁신해야 될 게 소프트웨어에 좀 혁신을 해야 되는데, 이런 점에서 좀 미네르바 대학에 하는 거를 좀 배웠으면 좋겠다는 얘기입니다. 그러니까 이제 미네르바 대학이 이제 보면은 무엇을 가르칠까, 이제 무엇을 어떻게 가르칠 건가, 이제 이런 걸 고민을 많이 하는 거죠. 그러니까 이제 하는데, 우리가 바로 그래서 그쪽에서 생각하는 생각하는 능력을 어떻게 가르쳐 줄 것인가, 그다음에 정말 액티브 러닝을 어떻게 할 것인가, 좀 더 우리가 어떻게 하면 좀 글로벌 액티비티를 더 높일 것인가, 이런 거 좀 소프트웨어적인 거를 좀 우리가 받아들이면 좋지 않겠느냐. 혁신시킬 건가 개혁할 건가를 찾아가지고, 그래서 지킬 건 지키고 그다음에 혁신은 가감하게 혁신하자. 그게 이제 저희 생각입니다. 예.
대학의 혁신에 그것도 파격적인 실상을 가져가고 있구나 하는 것 큰 감동이었었고, 두 번째는 역량 중심 교육 과정을 운영하고 있구나 하는 느낌이었습니다. 그에 따른 제 질문은 두 가지입니다. 하나는 그렇다면 질 관리를 어떻게 하고 있는가. 두 번째 질문은 혁신하는 과정 가운데 가장 어려웠던 점들, 문제점들, 과연 지금 혁신안이 다 만족하고 있을까? 미네르바 대학이 새로운 것을 만들었었는데 거기에 나타난 문제점은 없었는지.
장 총장님한테 먼저 말씀드릴 거는 우리가 다 알죠. How to fish. 뭐 fish보다는 how to fish. 그 고기 주는 것보다는 고기 잡는 법을 가르쳐 주라 하는 건 아는데 교수는 고기를 잡아봤느냐 이런 질문이 나오거든요. 그래서 우리 총장님께서는 어떻게 교수들한테 교수 잡는 법을 가르치려고 할 수 있는 환경을 만드는지 아주 펀더멘털 퀘스천이에요. 켄 로하스한테 질문할 거는 Don't take what I say personal or offending. 왜냐하면 여기에 있는 모든 분들이 다 미너바 대학에 대해서 다 조금 알 겁니다. 저도 알고 다 알고 있어요. 근데 단지 이제 어느 정도 아느냐의 차이점이고 그렇지만 우리가 지금 미너바 대학을 모르는 사람이 있다. 그런 사람은 없을 겁니다. 단지 이 성공이 모든 대학 시스템을 리플레이스 하는 건 아니에요. 기존 대학은 대학대로 유지가 되는 거고 이 대학의 약점을 교정하는 이런 새로운 벤처 비즈니스. 우리가 벤처 비즈니스라는 게 있다고 해서 대기업이 다 사라지지 않잖아요. 벤처는 벤처대로 성공하는 거고 대기업은 대기업대로 가고 중소기업 중소기업 가는 건데 마치 이것이 A라는 시스템이 B를 갖다가 리플레이스 하는 것처럼 얘기를 하면 저는 뭐 그렇게 하지 않고 본인도 계속 1, 2%만 얘기하겠다는데 지금 100%를 얘기하는 것은 적절하지 않고 단지 여기서 우리가 배워야 할 거는 상당히 많다 이렇게 생각을 합니다.
제가 이제 이 미네르바 시스템을 운영하면서 그동안에 아주 100% 만족했다. 아니면은 어느 정도는 좀 부족한 점이 있었다라고 하는 것이 있을 거라고 생각합니다. 100%라는 거는 없으니까. 그랬을 때 한국의 이제 대학들이 이것을 벤치마킹해서 이런 그 미네르바 시스템을 가져간다면 정말로 이거는 하지 말아라. 아니면 이것만은 꼭 해라. 하는 그런 것이 있을 거라고 생각이 됩니다. 그것에 대해서 좀 말씀해 주시기 바랍니다.
어떻게 하면은 좀 교수들을 변화시키느냐, 또 그다음에 질을 평가하느냐 이런 얘기는 굉장히 어렵죠. 상당히 어려운데 5명이 팀 활동으로 문제 찾고 문제 해결하면서 아까 말하는 4C가 이제 많이 증가되는 거죠. 이제 그래서 저 남대로 문제 해결하는 법하고 지금 그거 하고 있는데 나중에 아마 우리가 좀 받아들인다 그러면은 제일 받아들인다면 이제 1학년 때 좀 생각하는 법을 좀 하는 거 그걸 한번 여러분 많은 대학교도 한번 고려해 보시고 그래서 각 대학에서 개발한다 그래도 다른 대학 그 좀 과연 교수들이 전체적으로 이건 전체적으로 받아들여야 되니까 좀 건의 면에서 좀 떨어지니까 아마 좀 미네르바 받아주는 것도 괜찮은 거 없고요. 근데 뭐 자체적으로 개발할 수 있다면 그것도 괜찮다고 봅니다. 여러 학교에서 그래서 한번 그런 거를 한번 좀 적극 고려하시는 게 좋지 않을까 생각합니다.
이번에 새로 들어오는 4,000명의 학생을 전부 다 전원을 무박 2일 그러니까 잠 안 자고 교수와 그 학과 교수와 같이 거기서 자지 않으면서 24시간을 한번 공부를 시켜봅니다. 그랬더니 이제 1학년이니까 엊그제 고등학교 학생이었습니다. 그런 아이들이 엄청나게 잘합니다. 예, 우리도 놀랬습니다. 이거 너무 잘한 선택이다. 이렇게 생각을 하고 학생들의 만족도가 뭐 39점, 38점, 40점 만점에 그렇습니다. 그래서 정말 교수가 학생하고 1대1로 스킨십을 가지면서 밤을 새우면서 한다는 거 이건 너무나 학생들한테 좋은 일이다 그렇게 생각하면서 지금 그 미네르바 대학하고 작년부터 MOU를 맺고 하고 있는데 어떤 애로점이 있는가? 지금 아직은 학생이 없잖아요. 그냥 이제 그 커뮤니케이션만 하고 계시죠. 예. 그러면 언제 미네르바 학생을 만들 것인가? 네. 언제 우리 한동대학에서 미네르바 대학하고 같이 공동 학교를 할 것인가? 그렇게 하는 데는 뭐가 문제인가? 그걸 알고 싶습니다.
미네르바 대학하고 같이 협력을 한다면은 앞으로 생각하는 법, 문제 해결하는 법 이런 거에 대한 교육을 한번 같이 공유해 보려고 합니다. 그래서 아직까지 그래서 어떤 특정 문제라기보다도 어떤 전반적으로 생각을 넓히고 문제 해결하는 법을 한동하고 한번 좀 같이 해보려고 지금 이게 피저빌리티를 좀 하고 있는 중이고요. 재료금 1학년이나 이런데 장어는 문제 해결하는 기본적인 거, 베이직한 것만 좀 던져주고 그러면서 학생들이 그 문제를 여러 번 여러 프로젝트를 하면서 졸업하는, 그래서 나가서 또 실제적인 문제를 가지고요. 그렇게 하면 학생들이 현장 가서도 많이 되고, 근데 이미 그런 거를 제가 아까 말한 에콜 42라고 하는 데서 이미 그 하고 있다. 그래서 앞으로 점점, 그러니까 저는 뭐냐면요, 교수가 너무 명강의를 하려 그러면은 이게 안 됩니다. 그래서 저는 앞으로 수업을 교수님들이 되도록이면 좀 문제만 던져주고 좀 강의를 안 하는 그런 거를 좀 많이 해주면은 사실은 그렇게 하면 교수님도 편한 거거든요.
I'd say that's maybe even tougher than what we actually have to do. But if anybody can do it, Stephen and his friend, and actually a couple of us, our colleagues, actually went over. They got together and they did this together. So this is almost complementary, I suppose. Sort of, it's not really related so much to what we do, but it's also complementary, and it's good. And the last thing was, satisfaction with system. Yeah, you're never 100% satisfied. We iterate a lot. We change a lot. I like to jokingly say, Harvard, 1636, right? I know that because that's one of my alma maters. So I remember that's, and it's changed over time. It used to be a school that educated religious leaders and ministers and everything. But, at least in the United States, a lot of our traditional schools haven't changed that much. It's challenging for them to do so. As I said before, we tried to build a system, a model, a structure for our own organization that allows us to be more nimble, right? The fact that we don't have departments exactly, right? The fact that we do some of these things centrally as opposed to letting individual professors do certain things. So I don't know what to tell you in terms of what not to do, what to do next, and what not to do. Even though we actually haven't, we don't have any current partners, or we haven't signed any MOUs or anything like that with folks in Korea yet. Again, we are here to work with people that are seriously committed to making education better. Not just by taking the answers that we have, right? Maybe by taking something that we have, but by working together to make things better. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. 교육은 경험의 의미를 더하게 하고 다가오는 경험을 지도하여 더 나은 경험을 쌓을 수 있도록 이 경험의 재구축을 하는 것이다라는 말이 있듯이 오늘 이 자리는 바로 다가올 미래를 준비하고 그것을 지도하는 그런 자리가 아닌가 싶습니다. 장시간 여러분들 참 고생 많으셨습니다. 이것으로 표에 가름할까 합니다. 안녕히 가십시오.